Nice. Good weekend, huh?
Good weekend. Yeah. Yeah. A simple idea turned into a phenomenal weekend, huh?
I think so. Yeah. We had a good time.
Yeah.
I had a great time meeting your guys. 12 people came?
11 and then
11
me. So
and you,
it's
yeah.
12 total.
Okay.
Yeah. 12 total. Yeah.
They were asking us how we met and because it seems like we're like longtime friends, right? And well, during the pandemic, I did your first podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how a simple event like that can convert into something so much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why did you start your podcast?
Pandemic, to be honest. I mean, we were just Gary and I, and for those who don't know, Gary's my co-host on the podcast. But when pandemic started, we didn't have anything to do. Like, we shut down, right? We were down. So like, even if there was some training going on and other things and other projects, I mean, operationally, Academy was not really functioning. And from day one, I said to everybody that we're not laying anybody off. Everything continues from operations, but we're gonna be doing things that we were not planning on doing.
Staying busy, yeah.
Yeah, and probably Gary can tell you that story from his perspective. But I called him one day and I said, "What do you think about doing a podcast?" And he goes, "I don't know. Let's think about it." And I said, "Well, equipment is here, so we're starting next week." And it kind of went from there. We started, and we were pretty bad at the beginning, but you're learning and you're starting having conversations. And
I remember Gary. I don't know if we talked before a few minutes, but he was nervous, right?
He was, yeah. I think we both were. I think we both were nervous, but we. It was funny. Thinking in that retrospect, like, you were the first person I contacted, and you said yes right away. So I was like, game, So, and then conversation.
Why did you reach out to me?
I followed what you've done with the Academy, and just you as a person for a while, and in some sense I looked up to you for a long time as a martial artist, as a.
Did you know me from jiu-jitsu, from fighting, MMA?
From jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
From jiu-jitsu, from legacy particularly. So it was a anchor in my mind. One of the people that I always saw and look up to, and saw what you've done with your students and so on. So it was. It was one of the personality or names that kind of came naturally to me. Like, let me reach out to Professor Alberto. Let's see what's going to happen. And boom, here we are. A couple years later. So
and you've been keeping it going. You're like, we were talking about how, we're gonna keep going because everything's back to normal now with classes and stuff. And you're like, let's keep it going.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a silly project like this converted into deep conversations with different people, and it really started creating relationships, all around the world. Actually, we just had John Will, Dirty Dozen from Australia, on the podcast, and who in our world would thought that you can connect with somebody like that and talking about literally beginnings of jiu-jitsu before jiu-jitsu was jiu-jitsu, and hearing the stories and documenting that. And longer we've been doing this, as we were going with this, at this point, 130 or 140 some episodes, you talk to these people, and then often Gary and I, we reflect on this, and we simply say, people who listen to this, they don't have these opportunities, and we are kind of almost in a point of responsibility to use this vehicle to present history and these stories, and many of them are not undocumented at this point. And we are, we're trying to do this. We're trying to continue it and have these easy flowing conversations, telling a story of individual people, and continue this on. So hopefully we can continue doing it.
What are some episodes that stand out? What guests?
Oh, I mean, it's so many. It's hard to even narrow it down because they are all different. Definitely talking to some of the Dirty Dozen guys, so Chris Howder.
First 12 black belts in America.
Yeah. So definitely talking to those guys. It's, for me personally, that's a big anchor because, that's the beginnings, but then talking to some of the younger guys too. And you seeing how jiu-jitsu has evolved for them, you know, and how they think about jiu-jitsu, you know, in everybody has an individual story, you know. So obviously some episodes are more popular than others, you know, but, you know, getting the stories is important. So I'm a big journal guy, you know, I journal a lot every single day, and I went through several these books, you know, that you take notes in, and every single episode I take notes, and then sometimes I go back and reflect on it, and it's interesting because it's just, you know, everybody has their own story, and they are so different. So different.
Yeah, I found it that you think, you know, maybe somebody's a bigger name, right? Sometimes you think it's going to be like an amazing episode, but or a story, but of course they're all interesting, but some ones that you don't think are going to be anything end up turning into really interesting stories and episodes.
No, absolutely. You know, especially, you know, some of the guys, when you start digging into the history, like how they started, and you get into their family and other things, get a little bit deeper below the surface, you learn how much jiu-jitsu has impacted them personally, and then obviously what they do with their students, it's a domino effect at that point. So it's quite rewarding just to have these conversations.
Rewarding, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like my friends, like I enjoy it.
Yeah.
We enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like even now, right? We're able to have a conversation and share that conversation with others.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also so funny because, I mean, obviously we prepare for the episodes. We want to know who we talk to, and we do a little bit of research on them just to have some kind of guide of where we're going to go with the conversation. But so many times, the conversation just derails and it goes in completely separate direction, just naturally, organically. We get on a topic and it just continue on, and it makes us such a phenomenal chat between people. So,
yeah, awesome. Yeah, and here we are, huh? In Burbank, after a conversation, right? Of you guys coming out. From after that first episode, we just kept in touch, right?
Yeah.
We just got along really well.
Yeah.
And you brought your students out. You think they had a good time?
Well, from the amount of smiles that we saw in the last few days, I am confident that they had a good time, you know, and I'm sure even from the brief feedback that I got so far, you know, they already talking and asking, you know, where if we can come back. So I think it's an enjoyable moment, you know. When you're so passionate about jiu-jitsu and you train daily, I think the downfall of it is that you get used to people you train with, you know, and even if you have multiple instructors, you still get used to them. And then visiting a friendly academy when you're so welcome and so adopted as part of the existing team, it is number one, refreshing, but two, then you're actually seeing what some other people do, you know. And you know, as I was chatting with my students, they were like saying, it's like, wow, like, you know, the game is just slightly, it's like different accent, you know, in language, different flavor in food, just slightly different, and it's so amazing, and a lot of them, you know, were reflecting on it with a lot of positivity. So
yeah. What you know, what was your vision with organizing, having them come out? What was the idea?
Honestly, just to get away. It was, you know, you see a lot of these retreats and other things, you know, and I talked to a number of guys who have done them before, either were part of it or they organized them. And oftentimes I always thought about going to a remote location and learning from multiple instructors might be cool, but I think that family-oriented kind of atmosphere might not be there. And I've never attended one, so this is just my perception that I kind of imagined by watching and seeing what's on social media and videos and other things. You know, so for me, was important when we were organizing this to go somewhere where we would be not only accepted, but also, you know, very welcomed and very kind of, again, pulled as part of the team and have this experience for my students. You know, so I think this is a very unique environment and very unique experience for them. And honestly, this is a big part of team building, in my opinion, you know, because they will go back. home, and they will tell all the stories, and they will post on social media, and I'm already getting tons of text messages from people from home, and they're asking questions because they are curious, and it was a good time. That's the point. It was a good time. So I do appreciate you having us here, and it was phenomenal. So
I think we all had a great time.
Yeah,
it was mutual.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about what, like, you, I think you've been here, how many, is it your second time here?
It's third.
Third, yeah.
Third.
What do you enjoy about Legacy? What stands out to you? What makes it,
I think the cohesiveness of the team, it's pretty mind-blowing. So even when I arrived here on Thursday, I don't know if they knew we were coming or not, but they were extremely welcoming. And it was like, hi, and this and that. Yes, you're from Chicago, and this, and it's almost felt like everything was rehearsed in a way, and it was very, very welcoming. And well, besides that, a bunch of killers around here, and I don't have many opportunities to step on the mat and have 15 or 17 black belts around me and train with them, just like earlier today, I think we did 12 rounds, and
I used to have my my longtime training partner with me. He's like a 5th degree black belt, and like the Sunday morning used to be like a master's training, right? Master 2, so 36 and up. He's like, man, that's like the toughest training of all week, because all these black belts and everybody's training hard.
Yeah,
like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, yeah, and in a way, even one of my guys asked me if I'm gonna RŌL, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally doing it. Like, I don't have these opportunities. You guys have many opportunities, but like, this is huge for me. Even just exchange and go, and some of these guys I'm meeting for the very first time, even though this is my third time here. So, it making connection, making relationships, and really, doing what we love, because that's the bottom line,
Yeah. How long have you had a gym for, the Academy?
Opened, we established in 2014, end of 2014, and we opened the doors beginning of 2015. So, almost 10 years,
Okay.
8, 9, yeah.
Yeah, I always remember the story of how you did it. You had a corporate job. And
Yeah.
You're like, okay, if we hit this goal, like step by step, I'm gonna have do work, after hours, and then if we get to this certain point, I'll quit my job, and then he's like, okay, we're gonna hit it. I'm gonna quit on this day.
Yeah, it's
I mean, most people don't have that, the ability to set that goal and stay true to it till it's complete.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you put 100% of yourself into something, and you don't see the end result for extremely long time. It feels like you are not accomplishing anything. It's almost like brushing teeth. If you brush it once, it means nothing, right? But if you consistently do it, it has this impact, and it's very hard to wake up every day and go grinding and go doing it, but you don't see the immediate results today, right now, so that was hard. That was hard. But ironically, as I was here, actually, I got a text message from one of the guys who was on my team way back in the corporate, 10 years ago. And he texted me literally yesterday or the day before. And he texted me, and so shout out to Mike. But he texted me that he wants to start jiu-jitsu if I had, a few minutes to talk to him. So we are supposed to talk next week. And,
Nice.
and
Is he the guy that got you in?
No. He was in corporate. He was on my team.
I got you.
And so he wants to try jiu-jitsu.
That's amazing.
So he saw on social media that I'm here and that we are training, and he's like, I want to try this. So it's cool how even unintentionally you're impacting people.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, jiu-jitsu, right? Just keeps I don't know, keeps getting better. As you, for me, it's changed, right? With every when I was younger, it was different, but it's always been so rewarding, in every aspect. It's like nothing I've ever done before,
Yeah.
Tac fit has definitely given me certain things, that is really rewarding, but I think it's all interconnected for me. The martial art aspect of course, pushing yourself, challenging yourself, right? facing your fears, but also, the connection with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those connections are irreplaceable almost. I mean, there's really not many activities where you bond in such a way while you trying to break somebody's arm. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. We do put ourselves in some compromised positions, and I think trust is a big part of this, and I think that's why the relationship is being created so quickly and so strongly,
Deeply,
deeply in some cases. You know,
Yeah.
I told this story on my podcast a couple times, but I was at the airport. This was one of the times I was coming back from here, but I was at the airport and I was filling up the water bottle at the fountain, and the guy behind me standing, and I kind of peeked, and he had a jiu-jitsu t-shirt, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" We start talking, and we talked for 20 minutes, and I didn't even get his name. That like instant connection that you get within the jiu-jitsu community.
Kevin's laughing.
Kevin is laughing over there.
I don't even know his name, but we talk for hours.
But that's what I do. I talk, so all it takes
it's funny because you have friends in Brazil, right? A lot of people, most you have a nickname.
Yeah.
And so you've known somebody for 20 years and you still don't even know his name. And most of the time, the only reason I know their name is because of jiu-jitsu tournaments and they have to put their real name on the registration. You're like, who is that? What's his name? I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And you've known them for, 20, 30 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your nickname? Or what is your nickname?
I didn't really have a nickname, but it was my family used to call me Al.
Okay.
Like Alberto, short for Alberto, because I had a lot of Alberts, like my grandfather, my uncle. And so, and then in Brazil, they say the L, they pronounce like a U, like ow.
Oh.
And instead of like a dog barking and going woof woof, they say ow ow,
Oh.
And so it's kind of like ow ow pitbull or whatever, just ow, So they say ow. It's kind of funny.
That's
and
funny
endearing, too.
Yeah. That's funny stuff. Yeah.
That's what the term is. Ow ow ow. Good memories.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the best part about jiu-jitsu, like the memories that you make.
Mm-hmm.
Impacting people and people impacting us. And
I'm gonna ask you again on your podcast. You talked to like Hadja Gracie, right?
We didn't have Hadja,
okay.
but we had Horian. We had
Horian. How was Horian?
It was great. I mean, those are great
He's
conversations.
the guy who created the UFC.
Yeah, UFC. Yeah, it was great to hear behind the scenes. It was great to hear, his perspective about
where it is now.
What is now? Like even yesterday, last night we sat down and we were watching UFC, and you see this end result of, $1 trillion company or whatever it is right now, but it all started like in the garage, and he talks about it, like even how they were selecting the fighters for UFC 1, and like how it all just simply started.
How did he select the?
Well, they had pictures. He was saying that they had pictures just on the wall, with their names,
like Polaroids.
Yeah, and with short descriptions of which art they were representing, and they were trying to match them up, and I guess there was one room filled with them because they were trying to just make matchups, and it's just mind blowing how
bare knuckle, no rules,
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing you can't do is like fish hook and eye gouge, right?
Yeah. Hair pulling was allowed.
Yeah.
What was it? What's his name?
Kimo.
Kimo. Yeah. Horace Gracie was yanking his hair. Yeah. I mean, that's
and no weight category.
No weight categories.
No time limit.
No time limit. Open weight class, right? And essentially anything goes, so
it's a lot of guts, a lot of balls to get in there.
Oh yeah. It was very eye-opening. Yeah. We've come a long way since then.
It's 30 years.
30 years.
I saw it on the gloves, right?
Yeah.
The UFC, that 30 years anniversary.
Yeah. Long time.
When
Think about it from this perspective. If that didn't happen, if Horian didn't put this together, if he didn't do UFC 1 or whatever, I don't know at which point became more official, but like I think UFC 7 or 9 became a little bit.
I think they got out after the fourth one, right?
Okay, maybe.
Maybe they did the fifth or something, and then that was it.
Yeah. So think about it. If that failed, either it didn't get off the ground or just stopped, would we be sitting here?
Yeah, no, for sure.
No. See,
For sure.
look how one event,
It
one
changed.
person
It changed all of
changed everything.
martial arts around the world.
Absolutely,
It,
absolutely.
brought grappling back into the
Absolutely.
forefront. It was all striking things
Yeah.
for so many years.
Yeah,
People thought maybe it didn't even work.
yeah, yeah. I mean, isn't that mind blowing?
It's mind blowing. Just and Hoist Gracie was like the perfect guy to
Yeah.
do it too, because
Yeah,
I mean there was these huge guys in the bracket, right?
yeah,
And he's like
Yeah.
170 pounds,
yeah.
just with good technique and
Yeah.
know-how,
Know-how. Yeah.
beating three people in one
Oh,
night.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what a world-changing event.
Yeah, what a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some other things you remember from them? I'm curious, just in the Hoy and Gracie episode.
This whole garage thing. So that's like a
Them
common
training in the
Yeah,
garage.
so that's like a common denominator. So anytime we talk to the old school guys, like Chris Cowder, John Will,
The Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen,
Uh-huh.
Ken Gabrielson, even next generation, like Henry Atkins, I mean, there's a next generation after that, but even he talked about that, going to Hickson's house, everything. There was no such thing as academy, that's kind of post product of what the next version of jiu-jitsu is, what we see today. But before, it was all private lessons. Even like John Will was talking about that he was I don't remember which number, number 11, I think he was. His attendance card was number 11. And I asked him, who were the other 10? And I have no idea. Like, I've never seen them. I have never interacted with these guys. It was very one-on-one. You showed up for
private classes, huh?
everything. You showed up to a specific time. You were taught a class, and then you left.
I think that was definitely America, because I'm like first generation competitor, like I was right after like Chris Howder, and for sure, like I mean, unless you were with the Machados, because they came from like the whatever the Carl's Grace, just thought they were the kind of the full thing. But there's a lot of Hoy and Gracie, kind of the way he set things up, and they still that till today. Like it's a Heather Gracie thing, right? They did privates in the original Gracie Academy in like the 30s and stuff, and that's how he ran things, like the Valente brothers in Miami, they do private lessons, but like the Carlson Gracie, the Carlos Gracie Jr., Holes Gracie, like that whole. Which are all the major teams right today. They were like training, group training, gatherings and stuff. But Helio was definitely like privates, and then in those early days here in the U.S., you could go to the Machados and you could do a class, in the early days, like Dave Novigrad. He's an interesting. He's been the first. I think he's Higgin Machado's first black belt. First American black belt. First American. Not sure, but he's old school. And at the Machados you could train group, but like the other ones were definitely a lot of privates. Because of how they came up. Like Hoyer brought Hickson out. He brought brought his brothers out, right?
Yeah.
And so they did a lot of privates.
Well, even today, like if you look at Chris Howder, I mean, he has little classes, but it's literally in his garage, and it, I mean, I don't know if you consider it as a class. They kind of do it more one-on-one or very small, like semi-private lessons for students. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and he takes a lot of pride. We had him and his wife on the podcast, and they talked about it. They had zero interest in opening an academy.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
But they do love what they do.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel blessed because my history allowed me to. I did privates, of course, because you traveled wherever you could. Like I came out here, and our first teacher, Maul Easton's first, like he was a Navy SEAL. He was a student at the Machados, so he kind of ran like a group class. But then, of course, I would come and I would try to do privates, right? And we were going to Carlos Machado in Texas. He had just moved out there from California, and his studio was inside of the Walker Texas Ranger studio.
Oh,
the Chuck
really?
Norris studio.
Chuck Norris, yeah.
So you had to walk through like the set
Okay.
to get into the mat room. And that was pretty cool. It was like the early days, and I'm still connected with a lot of the guys that you know, got the black belts and the first generation of guys. But I'm really grateful that, you know, I had the experience of moving down to Brazil and really like get the source, you know, of how things really were, you know, because the Helio, I shouldn't say the Helio, because back in the day everybody was together, like Carlos Gracie Sr. and Helio. But like it was kind of like Helio, right? He had his way, like he was very like, you know, very, you know, they're all disciplined, but like very I don't know, control, like he did privates his way. And then Carlson Gracie was more like, you know, he's the fighter guy. He took, you know, when Helio lost, Carlson avenged his loss. And so Carlson was the champion of the family. And then Holes Gracie was after him, right? And so we're kind of lineage of all that, right? The Carlson, the Holes, and then after Holes passed, because he died when he was in a hang gliding accident, Carlos Gracie Jr. took over his students, which is the, you know, the beginning of Gracie Baja, because he moved from like Copacabana, that area, to Baja, to Tijuca.
Yeah. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, amazing, you know. And then of course they were all rivals. They all competed against each other. Like we were rivals of Carlson Gracie. We were like, oh, they're meatheads, and you know, whatever. Like technique isn't as good. Our technique's better. Whatever, more, you know, whatever. It's super interesting, but it's an amazing dynamic. Even like RŌL Gracie, which is you know, Helio's son, right? Yeah. And so he was the competitor, the jiu-jitsu competitor, right? One of the greatest of all time. So him and his lineage, and then like Saulo Ribeiro talking to him, because Saulo Ribeiro is probably RŌL Gracie's top student, right? Him saying like Gracie Baja brought out the original competitors, you know, they brought out the best version of him. Yeah. You know, and they all mixed, right? Everybody brought out the best in each other. The Carlson brought out the best in the Gracie with the Carlos Gracie Jr. students, and then the vice versa, you know, is all interconnected. And then it's cool seeing people at the Masters Worlds, or, you know, these you know, even the tournaments, but they're competing at their events, but they're still competing with each other, or we just hang out. Yeah. And they were once rivals. Yeah. But they're like brothers, you know. Yeah. They're like, you were a rival, but now it's like you're just so grateful because now you realize those guys brought out the best in you.
Yeah, well, they push you to the limits, right?
They push you to the limit.
You really, yeah. And I mean, listen, if you go through that kind of training and that kind of competition, especially, you know, interacting with people like that, you know, you always make that connection with them, you know. Yeah. And it's, you know, you're rivals on the mat. But the moment you step off, often you're friends, you know, and you hang out off the mat. So I think that's
at the time there's bad blood, you know. Yes. Well, it depends on the person, right? But there was some bad, you know, like there was some, you know, it was a rivalry. You know?
Yeah, no, yeah, like like we talked to Hideo Seneca. He talked about that often.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What did he say?
Well, he was like,
so he's one of my mentors.
Yeah. Hideo Seneca. I mean, what an interesting story. I mean, he's old school. He's
about 1996, the first world champion, black world champion. He beat Megaton in the finals.
Yeah, I mean, he talked about anything from fights at the beach to to some
of
the tournaments.
What did he say?
Well, it said it was very raw back then.
Yeah.
It's very raw. Like everything was about honor. Everything was about protecting the name. Yeah, you know, nobody could say anything. Nobody could.
You fight on the beach.
Absolutely. Right now, let's go. You know,
like people being disrespectful these days. Like, you know, they punch you in the face. Like, wherever.
It definitely was different. You know, and you know, even tournaments, it was almost. Not almost, but it was like protecting the honor of the flag. And, you know, you're fighting under this name, and you need to do what it takes, you know. So it was interesting to hear those stories way back from Brazil, you know, because we don't see any of this here.
Right.
I mean, we see the competition aspect of it, but
it's all. I mean, it's all nice now. It's right. Not that you know, but the essence, the rawness. I think there was. Yeah. I think there's something to that, you know, because it is primal.
It is.
And I don't think. You know, because it's interesting, right? IBJJF, we were talking about this, right? Yeah. The goal is to make it like a real fight. Like their goal isn't to make it an Olympic sport. Yeah. But Jigar Kano, he wanted judo to become an Olympic sport. So his goal was to make an Olympic sport.
Correct.
And so they took stuff that wasn't spectator friendly, perhaps.
Absolutely.
and adapted it, and it kind of ended up mainly like throwing, right?
Yeah.
More so than controlling on the ground and things like that. But the Gracie family kept the essence of it alive, right? Hence, fast forward into the UFC in the 1993.
Yeah.
Yeah, they kept it alive. What was it? I forgot my train of thought on the jiu-jitsu. Oh yeah, for the IBJF, like their goal. So they're trying to the IBJF is very like judo-esque, with guys with the suits and things like that. And we were talking about how at the finals of the Worlds, like the guy won in the last 10 seconds, and then he jumped off the mat and jumped on his team in the stands and was all celebrating.
Yeah.
And then they disqualified him. And like there's a balance, because I think it needs to be primal. Like people, like UFC is so primal. Like the guy jumps on the cage and he does the, it's a part of like, man, you're so emotional.
Yeah.
It's real, and you connect with that.
Yeah.
And I think to make it so stiff, our goal isn't, the IBJF's goal isn't to be an Olympic sport, right? So why are they trying to be like judo, right?
I don't know.
I don't know. And they're supposed to be like a real fight, right? That's what the essence of, that's what they're, when you do the rules thing and all that to get certified, that's what it says. Yeah. But somebody that, fought for, so I understand that aspect, but it's like the suits and very, very like stiff. And then you have ADCC.
I was about to say. Right?
That was really cool. I mean, they have Bruce Buffer, and then like it's raw, like you take the guy off the mat and you kind of keep going a little bit. There's no like, it's not so like, it's primal, more primal.
Yeah.
Like more like you got or you don't,
Yeah. It's definitely more entertaining too,
Yeah, and it's more real.
Yeah. Do you think that's the reason why ADCC is growing so fast in the last few years?
I mean, man, I think Mo, doing the last two, the first one being here in Anaheim, like they raised the production value, because I don't know if you watched the earlier ones with like in China and like the mats are separating was a joke, that's the apex of submission grappling.
Yeah.
And so I mean the first Abu Dhabi's, that's what got it kind of going. It was in Abu Dhabi, and they had a combat club. They had like the Brazilians would go over there, and they got like gold eagle. I don't know, all kinds of like money. Guys that were like betting on them, and if you want this or that, they were, so they made money,
Yeah.
And that was like unheard of in grappling at those times. So that's what kind of like got the word out about ADCC. And of course the rules are cool, because it was like, who is the best style of grappling? It was like very, very primal, very like the first UFCs.
Yeah.
Of like, which style is the best?
Yeah.
Which Royce Gracie with the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu showed, right? How effective it was. And then ADCC, it's like Jiu-Jitsu, but then now it's, you have to kind of do everything, but it all kind of intertwines, like people doing the leg locks, sambo, adding sambo to the game. And so it's really like, it's a mixture, kind of like how MMA has become.
Yeah.
It's a mixture.
Often on
it's all blended together.
Yeah. Often on my podcast, we talk about if the ADCC flavor of jiu-jitsu is going to create its own sport almost. What do you think about that?
Man, I
do you think that it's gonna stop? Do you think a decade from now we're gonna stop calling it jiu-jitsu and it's gonna be just grappling?
Nah, it's jiu-jitsu, man. It's jiu-jitsu. There's a respect there. There's a lineage. It's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
And I think gi no gi, it's jiu-jitsu. I think it's just the production and how they do it. Like IBJF, it's huge tournaments, right? A lot of people, and that's cool. But it should be more like, it shouldn't be so. I appreciate it. I feel like I'm criticizing, but I appreciate like how they have everything, like the timing and everything. Everything's like really organized, But just I wish it wasn't so strict, rigid, yeah. Because it makes it not fun for the guys. Like we've been doing the Jiu-Jitsu World Leagues, and it's fun, man. It's like very like they take care of the coaches. There's like a little coaches corner. But they also kind of take care of the competitors. They make it super easy. Like if you have to cancel, get a refund, or just they make it really easy, and you get 2 matches, not because it's good or efficient for them. It like adds so much more work, right? But because it's just best for the competitors,
Yeah.
And so I don't know, the whole I'm an IBJF guy. I believe I love it. It's just a little bit. I just go on intuition, and right now, like the it's not really clear, that like we were saying, the IBJJF you know, it's to be like a real fight, but yet then it's not like it's very stiff, you know. It's not. It's very stiff, like with suits. It's all good. The suits are cool, you know. But just you know, the people with the if your gi's not perfect, one time you're out or whatever. It's just so stiff, you know.
It's very much Olympic like, you know, like what they do with judo, you know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're copying, right? They're copying the judo style, which is good because it makes it more professional,
right?
But at the same time, like it's cool to be like raw too. And I think that the guys who do, you know, especially like that's what attracted us to the whole thing, you know, just the rawness of it, like going to the original Worlds in Brazil at the Tijuca Tennis Club, and you know, like Roger Gracie, you know, getting Jacare in the armbar and Jacare not tapping, you know, and winning the match and running around like one-handed,
right? We'll break his arm,
everybody's cheering, and you know, like guys, the Tereré guy, like the kids from the favela, like ooh, Tereré, and like just like soccer is like a soccer stadium inside, you know, and just guys jumping off the mat, and just it was just epic, you know, like as a kid, as a young guy, like I was just like, this is it, you know, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Like being there and going through these emotions. That was crazy, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just real, you know. It's like I feel like it's great. You know, it's all good. You know, it's all good, but it's like a little bit pretentious too. You know, like you know, guys are. It is what it is. You know, jiu-jitsu, fighting. It is what it is. Like, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as like the growth, because somebody said like, oh, you think gi is dead? It's like, no, man, it's jiu-jitsu, you know. You should do both.
Absolutely.
You should do both.
Absolutely.
You should know it all.
Yeah.
And it's the biggest thing. The biggest thing, if you ask any of the old like guys that I've done podcasts with, like Royce Gracie, just people that have been in the game for a long time, man, they always say the same thing. What's the biggest thing that jiu-jitsu has given you? It's the relationships.
Yeah.
You know, the relationships, like they have the rest of their life. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know. It's all good. It's all. I don't feel like I didn't mean to sound like I'm criticizing, you know, the things, but just you want it to grow and you want it to do good, and I think there's a little bit of the vision isn't very clear because IBJF is to be like a real fight, but yet it's trying to be like the Olympics and judo and stuff.
Well, hopefully as part of the evolution, you know.
Yeah,
and
maybe they adjust, you know.
Maybe they adjust.
They adjust,
so
yeah.
I mean, we all have to evolve and we have to make changes. If you don't make changes, you kind of fall apart, right? So
yeah,
we'll see over the next few years, especially with ADCC growing, what they're gonna do.
Yeah, and the ADCC Worlds, this last one, it was like a real world championship. You know, the guys had their own countries jersey on, like if you're from Canada representing Canada, you had your flag on it. Like I was really cool. I stayed there from the early morning till night. I was just like, it was amazing.
Yeah,
you know, the Pride announcer, the pyrotechnics, the Bruce Buffer. I mean, come on, you know. The Hall of Fame. You know, the Hall of Fame was, you know, I got a little emotional just sitting there. I was like, man, I'm just really proud to have been part of just this story. Yeah, really following my instincts and my heart, and moving down to Brazil, and doing what I loved. You know, following my passion, because it did not make any sense at all. You know, I didn't think about having a gym. It was Fight Club days. You know, you weren't thinking about. Nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was.
So when you were
nobody knew what jiu-jitsu was.
So back then, when you were training in Brazil, like, do you comprehend the magnitude of what's around you?
As far as what?
Like people you train with and how big this is going to be.
No, of course not. I just followed my heart. It was crazy. Like I had many mornings where I woke up and like I'm in Rio de Janeiro looking out the window and like, what am I doing here? You're crazy. What are you doing here? You know, because I lived in Rio when I first went there. We lived on this little island, and I had to take like a little boat to get to the front of the island. I have to walk because the house we lived in, it didn't have like land access. You had to paddle a boat to get to the house, you know. And so I had to we had to walk to the side of the island. I had to paddle a boat to get to my
How
house,
far was
know?
that?
It wasn't that long. It was maybe like 200 feet, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know, to learn my first day, I almost got washed away. I thought I was gonna get washed away because I didn't know how to paddle. I was from New Mexico. I didn't know how to paddle. So you paddle one time and then you start going in circles. Right? And if there's a current, forget about it. You know. And I thought I was gonna die. You know.
That's funny story. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I did it on. I talked about it on Joey Diaz's podcast. You know, that's my first day. Like I'm all Easton. And he's like, "Oh, just take the bikes back to the house."
Yeah.
You know? I'm like, okay. And you know, he was like kayaker. And I had never like paddled a boat. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, for sure. And it was like I said, like about maybe 100 feet or whatever, 200 feet. And you know, it's like a couple paddles, right? But I didn't know, and there was a current, and there's like these little plants, like the Jugoya plants, like that, you know, can get caught up in your boat and stuff, and then they start dragging you out. And it was a lagoon, Baja de Tijuca, so there's like a land, and then there's some islands in this lagoon, but of course the water goes out into the ocean. So when you come into Baja, you see the water going in and out. So I had that vision in my mind, and then the current was like raining a little bit too. And the water starts taking me, the current takes me out, and because I was going in circles too, so I couldn't paddle against it at all. So I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna get washed out to the ocean. And so I grabbed the side of the land, you know, and I just pulled myself inch by inch, because I don't, you know, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I got back to the little pier where the boat was, and I just tied it up again. It took me probably like a half hour, you know, to get to the original spot, you know. You have like hard work. And I went back to the house that Amal was at, and I was like, "Hey, man, like I didn't make it, you know. I don't know how to paddle." And
you just had him on my pod because if I knew I would ask.
He's
him
like,
about that.
he's like I'm a big brother, older brother, you know, to me. And so that was that first day. But he took me to I'll tell you the first day, okay, of me in Brazil. So this is before iPhones. So it was like little dictionaries, right?
What year is this?
1996.
Okay, that's way back. Okay.
Yeah, and so I go, and then he picks me up, and Hansel Gracie asks me. I go because my dad lived in New York at the time, so he asks me to bring a laptop for his friend, and I was 18 or what I was, you know, I was a kid. And so I get to the immigration, and they're like, "Is this your laptop?" I'm like, "Actually, no, it's not. Somebody gave it to me. I didn't know, you know. So I was dumb, you know, naive." And they're like, "Oh, really? It's not yours, huh? Okay, it's somebody else's. Okay." And so they took me into the customs, and they had me in there for like I don't know, a couple of hours, you know, interrogating me. And so eventually, Amal knows something is up, so he comes inside and he kind of helps me out, and we end up leaving the laptop, and I had to come back, you know, months after with Hansel Gracie's friend to kind of get that laptop and figure it out to get back for him. So that was that. He picks me up. Oh, but before that though, Amal was a big kayaker, so he asks me to bring his other kayak, because he almost died. He's a river kayaker, but ocean is different, right? Because if the ocean wave hits the skirt, basically the water goes inside the kayak, and it takes you down to the ground.
Right.
And so he had to get saved by a helicopter, and he made the news and everything.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And so he's like, "Hey, man, I got another kayak. Can you bring it?" So imagine so I brought a kayak from New Mexico to New York, because my dad lived in New York City, you know, at the time. And so I you know, put some cardboard around the kayak, and then checked it in as, you know, as an oversized whatever.
How big is this kayak?
Kayak's a kayak. It's huge. You know, so yeah, exactly. This is like before, and that's not even the first day yet, right? It's just like getting there. And my dad, till he died, he never forgot that story that we strapped this kayak to his roof of his car. It was like this little car, you know, and we strapped it to his car, and we got it there. It was crazy, you know. And I did it, you know. I did it. I brought it, checked it in, and so I had this kayak with cardboard wrapped around it with tape and whatever. We figured it out. Taped, you know, tied it to his roof, you know, the roofs of cars to get to the airports, you know. And then Hansel Gracie gives me a laptop to take for his friend, and then I'm you know, naive and I don't want to say the right things to the immigration. And they took it and interrogate me for 2 hours. And I don't speak, you know, their English wasn't good, and I had zero Portuguese. And then Amal he gets me, and then and his kayak, right? And so he's gonna go out there again. And so, like I said, he almost died. The helicopters, because there's like big old, you know, what do you call, like rip tides, like rip. Is it riptide?
Riptide, yeah.
Yeah, it pulls you out into the middle of the ocean. Yeah, so he almost died, and somehow somebody saw him, and the helicopter got him, and, you know, got him to safety. And then he's like, "Hey, man, can you bring my other kayak?" And I was like, okay, So that was that. And then so we get to where the kayak and all that, and then we go to the downtown because he's like, I'm hungry, And if you know a mall's like always my L.A. Marshall, he always calls it a mauling,
Mauling.
And because he grew up as a hippie, so he's like kind of like a free spirit, And so we end up in this like downtown, like a hole in the wall. He would love to go into these hole in the wall places, and I'm kind of like real conservative, like I don't want to get sick, and eat the wrong food and throw up and whatever. I was kind of paranoid too, right? Because third world country, whatever. And so go to this hole in the wall place, of course, and I'm looking at the menu, and I'm like, okay, what's this, And then I look it up, and it says like lizard tongue. I don't know if that was the right thing, but I looked up the words in my dictionary, and that's what it said. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm okay, And then I see this homeless guy like showering, like because usually in the restaurants they have a sink in the middle of the restaurant, and this homeless dude like just bathing himself in that sink, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not hungry, So I didn't eat, And that was like in the morning still or whatever. And then eventually we make it to Baja de Tijuca, and we go to the friend's house, and he has some bikes, I guess, that we had to take back to the house. Actually, we got to the house and we got the bikes, and then we went to the house, and then he asked me to take back the bikes, and then, I almost thought I was going to die, and I got back to the original spot, and I was like, hey, man, sorry, I couldn't do it. And then just to finish the day, right before we're going to go, I'm in bed, about to go to sleep. I'm like, oh, that was a crazy day, tired, gunshots go off. Gunshots, it was like, sounded like it was like next door. Like I thought there was like a home invasion and people are, getting shot or whatever, shot up. And so I'm like, oh man. And so I went under the bed because it was like this like abandoned house, but this guy maintained it. Basically, they had a guy like maintaining it, and then he had these rooms, and so we rented the rooms from him. And so I thought like it was a home invasion, and I was like, it was like there wasn't a closet, so I just went under the bed, So I stayed under the bed, and then when they were looking for, hey, Al, where you at? And I was like, I come out of the bed. So they laughed, and I'm like, oh. I was freaking out. I was like, what's going on? And so that was my first day. It was a perfect way to, to end the day with gunshots and hiding under the bed and them laughing at me.
Yeah.
And there it began, my real like journey of getting serious with jiu-jitsu. And then I walked to the gym.
Well, it seems like after that everything should be easy.
Yeah, it was very interesting, because you would train. I would overtrain always, and I would get back to the little pier where I would paddle the boat, and sometimes the people would take the paddle, and so I wouldn't have a paddle.
Oh, so you left the boat at the shore?
Yeah, we tied it. What was it? It was like you walk to the side of the island, and there wasn't a lot. There's some people, but sometimes somebody would take the paddle.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a paddle.
So what did you do then without paddle?
Yeah, it sucked because the sewage wasn't always clean. It's a third world country, so sometimes there would be some smells and stuff in the water. It was like you don't want to like touch the water.
Yeah.
And so I'd have to grab the rocks and pull myself inch by inch to 100 feet or whatever, 200 feet, whatever that was, to get to the house. And that's after training all day, getting home like 10:30.
Exhausted,
Yeah. And then you wake up in the morning like, what am I doing here?
So what you're saying, we are all spoiled by having a nice, clean facility to come to train to?
I'm grateful, man. I'm really grateful because, it was before cell phones, before videos.
Yeah.
Like you had to buy the VHS tapes. It was like very secretive, every single technique.
Oh, yeah.
It was very secretive. And so to really get information, it was hard.
Yeah.
And like I was a big old nerd. I had these notebooks, and I would write down all the techniques I was learning, and then I would come back and I would train with all the guys. That's how I started in a mall too. That's how he went down first because he was older than me. He was like 24, 25, and I was a teenager. And so he came back, and we started training in his garage every day. And I started learning all these different techniques, higher level stuff. And so this is cool, and he came to California for a couple tournaments, and then I was like, this is what I want to do, and I wasn't sure yet, and then I was like, I thought I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, maybe even. I almost went into the Navy. Yeah. And my blood pressure was high, and it's like, we need to keep an eye on it. Like, you can come, we're going to keep an eye, we'll call you. I was like, okay. And then Amal came back, and we started training in his garage, and then after a couple of months, the Navy called, like, okay, you can come in, because I thought I wanted to be a Navy SEAL too, like the first jiu-jitsu coach. And then once the mall came back and we started training in his garage, I was like, no, this is what I want to do. You know.
So you were hooked from then.
Yeah, I was like, it's all I could think about.
So let me ask
7 days a week.
So let me ask you this: when you're thinking, I'm not gonna go to Navy, I want to do this jiu-jitsu for a living. Are you envisioning that that's how you're gonna make your money?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
So you just want to roll. You just want to train. You just want to learn it.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
There's no gym. There is no like.
Well, that's why
I wasn't sure. They didn't know what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was. They knew what karate and taekwondo were.
Well, that's why.
But they had no idea how this worked unless they watched those early UFCs, which wasn't like, it was like very underground.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm asking, because today, obviously, the world is different. And when students come up and they get some of the, the higher ranks, the thoughts of having your own academy starts surfacing, right? Like what you're saying is that option didn't even exist. Like, that's not part of comprehension process. It's just you want to train. This is what you want to do. Nobody was thinking about making money or having students or having academy or being successful. None of that existed.
Yeah, like Dracula, he was he was an attorney.
Yeah,
and so his family's well-to-do, like and he decided, like, this is what I want to do. I could do jiu-jitsu, or I could become an attorney and not be happy. So I want to be happy, and so I'm going to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
and he followed his dream, and he was what I'm grateful for too, because it was Fight Club days.
Yeah.
But he was always professional. He would always show up on time. He would always like be really professional. Professional. But he would like he would be like, he would take it very serious, like a job, and he would be in morning till night. It was like a great role model.
Yeah.
To have. And I think that's why I ended up moving there and to Belo Horizonte and at his gym, because it was all white belts and blue belts. And in Rio de Janeiro, the Gracie Barra, it was all the best of the best of the best black belts. The best guys in the world. That was the golden era. That was the time where that was like Saul Alberto was saying, like, these are the guys that brought out the best of me, like the Sonequin, all the weights, different games.
Yeah,
it was where it was at. The creative space. But Draculino, just the environment and the culture that he had at the gym, it was all just beginning, and he really cared. And of course, because I was the first generation of his black belts, like you were representing him, So it was nice because you got that attention. But I felt like also that being in Belo Horizonte, it was I felt part of the team. I felt like they were this is my team. These are my brothers. I was representing.
Do you think that created the roots in your?
Oh, for sure. And I have these guys coming through all the time, and I think just kind of. It's the same energy, and the guys were all good, world-class guys, like, Felipe Pena, like, he comes from the same, like, all this Samuraga, all these guys, like, so many world championship champions, right? But it was all like, well, depends on the guy, right? How professional they are. But that's it, that's what I love, like, being professional, being a real, like, everybody, like, working hard, but also, like, keeping it real, right? Like, it's a martial art, it's a fight. You should know how to fight, as well. Like, that's why I like the self-defense, like all these things, like, you need to know that's martial arts. That's martial art, and you should be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but you know what? You should know how to fight too. You should, if you're a jiu-jitsu black belt, you should know how to fight. You should feel, hey, if something happens, I know what's up. Yeah. You should be able to take care of business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like here we have jiu-jitsu, we have Muay Thai, and of course I've gotten to these recovery, like TAC-FIT, that which really completes everything, really builds structure, helps you recover, helps you really get real strength. And I think, that's the formula, to have all those things together. And of course, the self-defense aspect, I call it self-defense, but it's like, man, it's like street stuff, and I think you can never, not do that. And if you watch an MMA fight, man, when you break it down, it's all like self-defense things, like a bear hug, this, that, like it's all the same basic things.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost used every single time you're on the mat.
100%, 100%.
And so often people don't look at it that way. So many times people think about self-defense as like grips or like the old school old school Helio Gracie black
Right,
and white
right,
text.
right,
You know what I'm
right,
talking
right, right.
about?
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, but even those are being used, I think.
No, for sure they are. 100%.
It's all there as a part of the core.
100%,
You know, so it's like
100%.
I think we all should know that. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I feel like I was the one talking this.
But listen, this is a great story. I want this on my podcast. This is great.
But yeah, it's been fun, and man, I'm so grateful, you know, for all of it, because it like there's no surrender. I've invested too much, you know.
Yeah.
And so like the pandemic and all that, we're talking about things, and there wasn't like I'm like 1,000% like to the death, you know, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Because this is where it's at. I know what it does for people.
Yeah.
It'll change.
Well,
your
it's
li-
mind blowing. It's mind blowing. I think when you look even at the students who are just starting, because I think that's where it's most visible. The change they are making over like 6 months and 12 months is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Like you know, I have one student that you know has special needs, and when he arrived, you know, there was no eye contact, you know, very minimal communication. And now he will trash talk back to you. You know?
Yeah. That's it. That's it. That's what happens. Guys are a little funny, like socially awkward, socially.
Absolutely.
They don't even look at you.
Yeah.
And then they like start, you know, being smart asses.
Yeah.
Kevin knows, he knows what's up. You know, that's it. And that's one of those things that motivate me when I see guys like that are just like so awkward socially. They don't even look at you in the eye, and then they become like, you know, like a brother, and like really
you
good
know,
at jiu-jitsu, like badasses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Straight up,
and
you
his
know?
confidence is up to the roof.
Yeah.
And then he's one of many examples. You know, I remember when he got his blue belt last year. You know, and when I called him out, you know, he came up to the front, and I was tying his blue belt. He leaned into my ear, and he goes like, "You got me on this. I didn't see this coming." You know, but the confidence, you know, it's just mind blowing. You know,
Yeah, that's it. That's what's up. Yeah.
Moments like that are very rewarding, aren't they?
That's it. That's what it's about.
As an instructor.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what motivates me, you know, after all these years. Seeing like things like that happening every day.
Yeah.
From adults to kids.
The kids. Yep. That are a spark in their eye, and that pride, motivation to come back, do hard things.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing we're sharing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. It was amazing to spend time with you always, but your team too, some of your guys and girls.
Yeah.
Women, you know, that three females coming.
Yeah.
Had some great conversations with all of them.
Yeah. They definitely appreciate it, and hopefully we can do it again.
For sure. How can people find you?
You know, Instagram is the best way. My name is long and very Polish like, but if you search for ROZDZ, you're gonna find me. I'm the only guy there. So, but Instagram is the best way to connect with me. I respond to all messages. So just DM me, drop me a line, and I'll be there.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
As always. Thank you.